Swift and solo queue lobbies should be separate. The majority of complaints I feel about the game being unfair, gen rushing, flashlight abuse, etc. is not from solo queue survivors, but Swift. These techniques are much harder to perform solo queue and therefore much less likely to be prone to abuse. Plus, it would massively reduce untunneling, slugging, etc. So let's break this down before I give the actual reason why this would never work. So this person's first claim is that the majority of complaints about the game being unfair is gen rushing and flashlight abuse. For starters, gen rushing is incredibly simple. You equip a toolbox or you equip a few gen perks and you can gen rush. That is the only way to gen rush, to dedicate perk or item slots. And there is no requirement to use these perks that you must be in a Swift. In fact, these perks already have extremely low pick rates, and those pick rates are even lower than the rates of Swift, meaning that it's already unlikely that gen rushing is happening at all, let alone in a Swift. Flashlight abuse, I'll give you that. It's more likely that survivors are going to be coordinated and getting flashlight saves when they're in a Swift versus solo queue. Their second claim is that it would massively reduce on tunneling and slugging. First of all, can you prove this? Can you prove that killers tunnel less when they're facing solo queue teams versus when they're playing against Swifts? Do you have a study, data, anything? Because once again, behavior's own statistics, the only ones we actually have on this, show that tunneling is occurring in about 40% of all games. Again, according to official data, Swifts are only in about 10% of all games. So there's 30% there that's just unaccounted for. Where is that coming from? Do killers just not tunnel against solo queue? Because clearly the statistics don't show that. You have to prove the things you say. Now, with all of these statistics and objective stuff out of the way, we can all agree that most killer mains probably don't want to play against Swifts if they can avoid it. I say that as a killer main myself. Obviously, Swifts are more difficult. I don't mind going against them every once in a while, but I wouldn't want to go against them every single game. So what killer would queue up for this on a regular basis? How would you balance out the number of killer players with the number of Swifts so that survivors aren't waiting an hour to find a game? And on the other hand, what's stopping the sweaty killers from going into the solo queue and just shit-stomping a bunch of random solo queue players? The answer is nothing. Nothing is stopping them. But you believe that's a fair trade-off for making Swifts' lives more miserable. All in all, this is just a terrible idea. It's like giving survivors the freedom to choose which killers they can and can't play against. It just wouldn't work. It's not backed by any statistical or objective reasoning. It would unnecessarily mess with queue times, and it would unfairly punish players for playing with their friends and loved ones.